This is the Avoiding Avoidance podcast. I'm Christina.
And this is Sean.
And thanks for tuning in, guys, today. I know this episode's a little closer together than our other episodes have been, but we'd like to start pumping them out so we can really interact with you guys a little quicker than we had been.
Yeah, I think the real plan is going to be to do 2 episodes a week.
Yeah, ideally.
Yeah, that's what we're ideally going to do. 2 episodes a week. We mean by a week we mean within 2 episodes within 7 days. Um, Not the 5 day work week, but yeah, we've gotten plenty of feedback and support from you guys, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been really productive, I'd say. We've gotten a lot of interaction back and forth between you guys and some comments about how you feel the podcast have been, and it's been very helpful to us.
Yeah, we want to let you guys know we really genuinely appreciate that because we want this to become as much of your podcast as it is ours. It's a podcast for the people, if you will.
And speaking of that, we decided to make a couple of pages, or I guess just one page, so that you guys can interact with us a little easier. We made a Facebook page. It's at Avoiding Avoidance on Facebook. We've also opened up our email to receive some stories. We've gotten some so far. That's Avoiding Avoidance Pod, Pod, at gmail.com. And we're also on Twitter. And what's the Twitter handle again?
At Avoiding Petty D1.
All right, so that's our Twitter, and you're welcome to interact with us on any of those platforms so that you can get your story out. And keep in mind, we can and will keep your name anonymous if that's what you'd like, and we're happy to filter out whatever part of your story or comments you'd like.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, did you have anything specific you want to talk about from the feedback we got?
Um, I appreciate the support that I've gotten for me releasing my little snippet of life. Um, People have been really receptive to me opening up, and I appreciate that because it wasn't easy, but I feel like it was a step that needed to be done so it can kind of break ground for the rest of this podcast. What do you think about your comments?
I've got a lot of a lot of different feedback,
Yeah.
positive, negative. I've been enjoying all of it. It's like I said, a lot. The main reason for this is not only to help you guys out and let you guys know that you're not alone, but to help myself as well. You know, one of my big fears is public interaction and
Mm-hmm.
the possibility of being criticized or rejected. So putting myself out there to be criticized and to be rejected has been, making my skin a lot tougher. I've been reacting to it a lot, but actually, what's crazy? I keep forgetting to separate the disorder from my personality because,
Yeah, it seems to be totally
yeah,
different.
my personality, I really don't care much about what people think about me, but the AvPD in my head keeps telling me, oh, these people are going to do this or these people are going to do that. And it makes me scared. So, you know,
Yeah.
makes me avoid doing it at all. But, yeah, there's been some pretty good feedback. We got a lot of support from people in the AvPD groups.
Yeah, you guys have been really awesome and supportive with everything we've been doing so far, so we really appreciate that. We even have some stories on board for today's episode
Yeah.
that we'd like to go over, and people have been extremely open and honest, and it's been really nice that you guys trust us thus far with your information. We're proud to be able to use that to help other people as well as you helping us.
Yeah, we're just trying to show what we all have in common here, and we want to make sure everyone knows no matter what your mental illness or disorder is, we're here because we're trying to make a we're trying to make a community
Mm-hmm.
where all of us, no matter what mental disorder we have, can come together and embrace each other.
Yeah,
We all
definitely.
have commonalities between us that we can relate to. We all, no matter what we have, we might all have trauma. We might all have uh, abuse, maybe neglect, but we all have something in common along those grounds. And we want to make sure that everyone gets a fair chance to speak their piece, because all of us matter and all of our opinions matter.
Yes, everyone's important, and we'd really like to share that with everybody else. So for today's topic, or one of the topics, we wanted to talk about bad habits. So often with mental illness, we find ourselves in these cycles of habits that don't seem to help what's going on with us. And, it's important that we're honest about it and we can acknowledge it and try to move forward with it.
Uh, to This is a good topic actually because to be fair, AvPD is a specific set of habits you have to keep you from interacting with the world or to keep you from doing certain things. So, for me, one of my avoidant habits is always asking where specifically we're going to go. So then I can go, oh, I'm not really into that. Even though it doesn't matter where the person says I'm going to go.
You're going to feel the same way.
I'm going to feel the same way. It doesn't matter where they say we're going to go. But that's just my way of avoiding it. And plus, I kind of use the AvPD as its own avoidance tool because some people understand what it is. So when I go, I don't feel comfortable around them. That's usually enough to get people to back off. But I want to grow out of that. So that's something. That's a bad habit I have to get over for sure. And do you have any?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have quite a few. The first thing is avoiding.
I have a few more, by the way. Just saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. One of the things I do is I avoid going into certain stores, specifically a store I won't name by brand name, but it's related to how many days a week they're open and how many hours they used to be open, but it's different now. But anyway, so the cashier at this store once made a pass at me and was calling me beautiful and was trying to flirt with me, and it made me extremely uncomfortable. And I know he probably didn't mean anything by it, and I know that nothing's going to happen to me because it's in public, but it really freaks me out. When someone does something like that to me, my heart starts racing, I get really sweaty and dizzy, and I just can't function super well. So if I pull up to this store and I see that this person's in the window, checking people out, then I decide to maybe go somewhere else and go down the street to a different convenience store instead. There's been a time or two where I was tired of feeling this way and I just went in anyway, and things ended up completely fine, but I was super anxious the whole time.
Right.
It's definitely a bad habit that I'm letting myself do this, because clearly when I did it anyway, they were fine.
Right, and you need that positive reinforcement. So you
Yeah.
need to do it and then have something positive happen so that you can keep doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even nothing happening is technically positive, so
Right.
I have to remember that.
Yeah. But first of all, you're perfectly validated in feeling like you just because you're a woman doesn't mean you should be flirted with or objectified in that way in public.
Right.
You don't want to be talked to like that, then you don't want to be talked to like that. That's all it is. I mean, I'm sure a lot of women are uncomfortable. People calling them sweetheart all the time or telling them they're beautiful. I mean, you just come into the store to buy what you want to buy.
Exactly.
So I mean, you're validated in feeling that way, but you're saying you overreact to it.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain situations where I think that anyone would have reacted similarly, but there's a lot of situations where I realize that I'm being a little dramatic about it, and it's
Right.
not really that big of a deal.
Because like you said before, depending on who the person is, like if it's an older woman per se and she calls you sweetheart, it makes you feel completely different than if
Yeah.
a man would have said sweetheart to you or something
Yeah,
like that.
and he could be meaning it the same way as the lady did.
Okay. I also have to work on going in stores completely because just having AvPD, going into any store is like a problem because one of my main things is appearance. So every time I see someone look at me, it's like, oh, they're judging me. Or if I hear someone laugh and walk by, even if in my head it's like, oh, they must have said something about you, or this place might be too crowded today, or if it's, especially if it's somewhere that's hot, then I start getting like real sweaty and clammy, and it just doesn't work out. But I need to get better at going into stores. I've been getting better at it lately, and
Yeah.
as you know, with the apartment building I grew up in, it's 21 stories, and a lot of people live there, and the store is always crowded, and so is the building. I've been getting a lot better with going in there. That's like one of my big tests, going in and out of there and seeing. I lived there 20 years, so I know probably several hundred people that are in and out of there. So meeting people and seeing people all day, that actually has been something I've been working on. It was quite a challenge before. I would get sweaty before I even hit the door, but
Right.
now, I can go in and speak to everyone, and
Yeah, you've been doing a
you
good
know,
job.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And also hanging out with my friends, because I always want to hang out with my friends, but sometimes the avoidance gets in the way,
Yeah.
and I let it get in the way. I just
Enable that.
yeah. The one phrase I heard earlier this week is one reason we don't like change is because we get comfortable with the way things are. And even if it's not perfect, we're comfortable.
Right.
So
So why be uncomfortable?
yeah, so why be uncomfortable? That's what happens with the avoidance. It's like, if I'm comfortable doing this, then why make myself uncomfortable doing the other?
Right.
But I want to take my life back from it, so I have to start being uncomfortable.
Right.
And I took a step, like I said the other week, by going to hang out with my friends all that day. You were there too. Yeah, that's something I need to work on. Is just in general getting out, because I don't like to get out often. I don't know if that's the avoidance or maybe sometimes the depression, but getting out and into public spaces with a lot of people, or with my friends, or with my family, or I need to get better at that.
Right.
Another thing. Did you want to go ahead? Do you have something else?
Yeah, I had one other thing. With me kind of mentally harming myself with using social media. As you guys may know, I was molested when I was a child, and that person is actually out in the world doing things like a regular person, and I can't handle it. He runs a painting like class company, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
And he teaches to the elderly, and he goes into nursing homes and teaches them all how to paint. And I have a major problem with that, because I feel like while they're not children, they are certainly another vulnerable group, and I'm fearful that something might happen to other people. I'm constantly worried about this person hurting other people. So I spend a lot of time on like Facebook and on their website looking up to see what they're up to next, so I can be like, oh, well, it looks like they're going to be at X location. I should warn them. And it's just a really bad thing for me, because things are going to progress anyway. And I'm just letting it eat away at me every day. And it's something I definitely need to work on backing off of.
Yeah.
So that's a major
You've
struggle
been you've
for
been
me.
getting a lot better at not doing it.
Yeah.
You recently, relapsed a little bit into going to do it a little bit.
Yeah.
But there was a time for about 6-7 months that you didn't do it at all.
Right.
And I'm proud of you for that. That's a big step. And it's hard. I know it's hard because it's something that hurt you.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to, and you have some other problems you need to work on with losing people that have to do with that as well, which is also why you're checking in on those people that you actually care about, as
Right.
well as the person who harmed you.
Yeah. It's
Right.
a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. So the other thing I wanted to say for me is I need to work on being myself more. I have a bad habit of changing the way I talk and the way I act depending on who I'm around, especially like with your parents.
Right.
That's one thing I need to get better with, especially since we're going to be moving soon and we're going to be around your parents a lot more.
Yeah.
I need to learn to be myself around my parents. I feel like if I'm myself, I kind of curse a lot. I have very strong opinions. I feel like people might not like me. I also have to get better at being myself on the podcast, because it's supposed to be a podcast about opening up. So
Right.
how am I supposed to open up if I don't act like myself?
And is there something that you feel my parents or whoever makes you uncomfortable can do to make you more comfortable around them?
Just be accepting.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I mean, you might not be accepting of all of me, but let me know what you're not. I need to know what you're not accepting of, or I'm just going to make up in my head everything I think you don't like.
Right.
So, as of right now, as far as I'm concerned, no one likes any bit of my personality. But if I
But you
got to
don't
know
know.
them and they said, "Oh, I just don't like that you curse so much," then I would go, "Oh, that's the one thing they don't like. I can work on that around them." It's still part of me, but it's still something I can work on, something
Right.
it's minute that I can change. But yeah, it's just being accepting and being honest with me.
Okay.
As far as the podcast goes, I don't know. I just don't want to alienate any listeners. I know we're all adults and we all speak differently. I just have a I do still articulate myself well, but I curse a lot. And that's why I stutter a lot because I'm filling in words that would normally be curse words or
We could do a bleep out.
oh, yeah, we couldn't believe I never thought about that. I just don't want to alienate anyone
Yeah.
because of me being vulgar or whatever.
Right.
But like I said, it's a podcast about being open and being vulnerable, so I should be myself. I don't want anyone to think I'm not being myself because that's what this is
Yeah.
all about. But we're all works in progress. Also, speaking of being myself, I wanted to say something about something that was brought up earlier. I've had two people actually ask me, why am I using two different names? So on here I say my name is Sean. My full name is Quayshawn. My full name is Quayshawn Thomas L. That's my full government name. And I when I was younger, I always got called Quayshawn by two types of things. It was either an authority figure or someone who didn't like me. So like I don't know why, but bullies have a habit of calling me by your full name, Quayshawn. Just I don't know. And then authority figures also would call you your full name when you're in trouble because I mean they're just calling you your
Yeah.
your
Right.
proper name. And also my grandmother, when she was mad, she always called me my full name instead of my
Typical
nickname.
parent.
Yeah, typical parents, they call you by your full
Yeah.
government name. So I go by Quay or Sean. Quay is what the people who grew up around me know me as. Those people would probably never call me Sean. And Sean is what society and the rest of the world knows me as. And most of those people who call me Sean would probably never call me Quay. So, for example, what do you refer to me as?
Sean.
And how often do you refer to me as Quay or Quay Sean?
Very rarely, unless I'm joking with you or I don't know, I'm trying to get a point across and I'm just being petty.
Yeah, see, so there you go. So, yeah, that's another thing I want to get across about that. I'm not trying to hide my name from you guys or anything. It's just a preference. They're pretty much both my nicknames, and if anyone wanted to call me either one, refer to me as Quay or Sean, I prefer you do that than to refer to me as Quay Sean. But that's my full name, and yeah, it's out there everywhere on anything anyway. So there you go.
Yeah, alternatively, I'm usually just called Christina when like my family members and close people call me Tina, but it's kind of the same thing, just the other way around.
Yeah, right.
So did you want to get into stories yet, or what do you think?
Um, I don't think I want to get into stories just yet.
Okay.
I think I wanted to do that during our venting session because
Okay.
there's a lot that people want to open up about.
Yeah.
Again, thank you guys for sharing your stories. It's really important to us to get interaction from you guys because that's what the whole thing is for. So yeah, we covered our bad habits, and
Did
yeah,
you want
go.
to talk about how AvPD has overall affected you?
We did say we want to talk about a little bit more about. I don't want to do specifically about AVPD, but I want to know how your disorder. What do you think could have caused your disorder or your avoidances? And I know, like for you, you said you think most of yours stems from the trauma of being abused when you were young.
Right. I mean, I'm grateful that my childhood is pretty much uneventful with the exception of this one thing. My parents were great and I grew up, quite well off, so I was pretty comfortable. But it seems like my life kind of made, like, went on another track by this thing happening, and I'm definitely a more anxious and reserved person as a result. And I'm not sure. I mean, it's possible that I could have developed this anyway, but
Right.
I don't know for sure what triggered it, I guess.
Right. And you want to say specifically what it is you have again, just so people know.
So, yeah, I have generalized anxiety disorder, which, as far as I understand, is characterized by having anxiety over really everything, not just one specific thing, for months and months, and you just can't let it go. I definitely have some aspects of PTSD from the trauma that I endured as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe some speckled in social anxieties, mostly related to men.
Yeah, but I think specifically with the men, it's an avoidance.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have to, like for example, with the stores, if you don't have to interact and go into the stores to deal with the men, you won't.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, our cat's making noise behind
Yeah, our
us.
cat's making a lot of noise right now. Sorry about that. Thank you, Kitty, for moving out of the way. Yeah, she's a very good girl for the most part. Anyhow, continue.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like, unfortunately, at the moment, my life is this disorder. I don't feel like my personality is what I feel like it is because I'm so constantly worried about everything. I feel like, during high school, I was this one person. I was really into volunteering. I was really into my studies, and that felt right. I felt like I was happy all the time.
Right.
And after this guy got out of jail, which was literally my first year in college, it feels like there was a shift. I stopped volunteering. My grades actually dropped, which was not like me. And since then, it's been a struggle to keep up my grades and to really be who I feel like I am because all I do is work and sleep. Like, I don't feel like I have myself
The
right now.
disorder covers up part of who you are.
Yeah. And that's something I'd like to steer away from because I know that I'm not in my right mind, but it's definitely a struggle. I feel like I'm just going through the motions every day.
Right. Not every single day.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely good days, but I feel like I look back and it feels like 3 weeks have flown by and I couldn't tell you what I did on certain days because it just feels like every day is the same.
Right.
With the exception of a few days.
Okay.
I don't know, but what do you think?
One, I'm sorry to hear that. You know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
It still makes me very upset that you had to go through that trauma.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it off air, but you know how I feel about it.
Strong opinions, like
I
you
have very
said.
strong opinions about people who abuse and harm others, and
It's completely valid. I feel like that's a normal opinion.
yeah. Sorry, we're So as far as myself, I part of mine is growing up where I grew up and dealing with a lot of trauma. Seeing people killed a lot, things like that. That I think that's one of the things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said this before, and neglect. I feel like a lot of people who have AvPD deal with neglect from their parents or from their peers at a young age,
Right.
or maybe even bullying. I definitely was bullied too at a younger age until I started doing martial arts and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I was definitely bullied, and when I remember that was one of the first times I remember withdrawing from people was because people were saying things about me and I didn't want to be around that.
Once you started beating them up, they left you alone.
Yeah, once I didn't start beating people up, that's not why I started doing martial arts. I started doing martial arts to to honestly, from my best friend was also assaulted at a very young age,
Yeah.
and I wanted to protect her, and I wanted to protect my mother, who was also in an abusive relationship, and I felt like the only way I could protect them is if I knew how to defend them.
Right.
So that started my 12-year stint in martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, like I was saying before getting into the martial arts thing, bullying was probably part of the reason I developed AvPD. Um, AvPD starts I feel like it starts very early. Like sometimes it's just like watching someone else, like the popular kid, get all the attention, and you're wondering why you're not getting that
Mm-hmm.
much attention. Or for me, very specifically, when my sister was born, it's a stereotypical thing. Everyone starts paying attention to the baby again, and that made me feel very inadequate.
Right.
And I remember it being that young. Me and my sister are 6 years apart, so I remember being like 10,
Old enough. Yeah.
10 and she's 4, and everyone's just paying her so much attention and
Yeah.
not paying me any attention. And I was having problems at even that age that I needed to talk to someone about, but I didn't feel like I could approach anyone.
Right.
So I think neglect and bullying, that's one of the things I'm going to label mine as. I don't know if anyone else, but I'm pretty sure there are some people who have their own experience with both of those things, and that caused it. I also see that trauma is another thing that causes both generalized anxiety disorder and also AVPD. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people have PTSD from a myriad of different things. Like I said, my PTSD is from seeing a lot of death,
Yeah.
and
You're living in your city alone.
yeah, just a lot of death, and you become numb to it almost, and
Right.
that made me very like detached from people because I felt like I could lose people at any moment.
Right.
So I think that's also part of why I push people away and avoid people, because I don't want to get attached to someone and then lose them.
Right. That makes complete sense. I mean, you've got to find a way to tone it down to an appropriate level, but I mean, those feelings are totally valid.
Yeah, right. It just feels like it's no point to start if I could possibly lose a person, and
Right.
technically we're all just humans, so
Right.
anyone could disappear at any given moment. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of my things. But we want to know what you guys think can contributed to your disorders. I feel like a lot of us have a lot of common themes in our lives that help contribute to the way we are, and we just want to show other people that they're not alone.
Yeah.
Like I said, if you were bullied and you feel like being bullied helped you become the way you are with whatever the disorder may be, speak up. There's more of us, and you're not alone. That's all we wanted to get across.
Yeah. We're all very similar, and we just need to be able to open up and share that so we can see that other people are the same, and we can all help each other grow.
Right. I wish mental illness was cool.
Yeah.
I wish it was cool to speak up on mental illness. As a man, it's not.
No.
As a man, it's like you're soft. I'm glad to see now. I don't want mental illness to be trendy, but I'm glad it's trending.
Yeah.
Right
I
now,
think it's better than it has been.
yeah. Right now, I see a lot of people speaking up on mental health, and
Yeah.
I'm glad for that movement, because before, a person from like where I'm from and being a black male, we couldn't vent. We
Right.
couldn't let our emotions out because we would just be seen as soft or complaining, one or the other. And yeah, I'm glad now that I have plenty of outlets, and I'm glad that other people are making it okay. And I hope also to help people understand that it's okay to let out your feelings
Right.
and talk about the things that you want to talk about. Like I said, all the time, all of us matter, and all of our opinions matter, and all of our voices matter.
All right. So let's see. What else do we have to talk about today?
We did the bad habits already.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't cover one of mine actually.
Do you want to go over it now?
Yeah, I definitely do.
Okay.
That one of the biggest ones for me is I'm sure a lot of us, not a lot of us, but I'm sure some of us here play video games of some sort, and getting online to play with quote unquote random people. I can never get on the mic. I sometimes not even about being on the mic because they can message you too. So I'm always scared of getting a message like, "Oh, you suck," or "Oh, you." Even if I'm good at the game, like
Right.
I just fear that like criticism, and I also have that problem with my voice. You know, I don't really like my
You know
voice.
your voice is great.
I don't like my voice that much. I really uh, I don't like my voice. So
Everyone in real life loves his voice.
I don't. I think because people compliment it, it makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't know why I said that before, but it makes me feel uncomfortable. Like even regular compliments make me feel uncomfortable. I don't know what that's from at all.
Yeah.
But maybe lose track.
I know, you were talking about Xbox Live.
So since I don't like my voice, it makes me not want to talk to people on the microphone, and it's simple. I want to play games with people. I want to play games with people that aren't always my best friends. Like sometimes they're not around, and I want to play games with other people, but I'm too worried about being criticized. And you know what? Tonight I'm just gonna try to play with a couple randoms. Maybe get on the mic even.
That'd be a good idea.
The way I've been doing this for me has been trying to tackle it head on. So maybe that'll help me. I mean, I feel in a pretty good social mood today.
Yeah,
and
we're on a good roll.
I've been saying I wanted to actually have sometimes I want to have conversations with people, like actual conversations with people. So maybe maybe I can try to open up and
Maybe just small talk or
yeah, and then I'll deal with the feedback however I have to deal with it. But
Yeah.
you know, yeah. Also, I wanted to know what do other people do when they wanna, because it works in cycles. So at some point, you want to talk to people and you want to
Right.
interact with people. So what do you do? Like, do people still go to bars and stuff like that?
like for interaction.
Yeah, like bars. Do people go to bars and do
Yeah.
that, or clubs, or
I think so, and I think,
I can't do no bars or clubs.
but I think a lot of people do it because of the alcohol, and that can help obviously
Okay, that too.
lower that threshold so you can talk to people a little easier.
But I'm sure it's more stuff besides bars. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
people go like, I don't know where you go because I don't
know.
do it.
People with social lives go places.
Yeah, go places.
We don't know anything about that.
Yeah, we don't have any social lives. We go to dinner. That's
Yeah.
what we go to.
Or actually, not even. We go to a diner, which is even like the lowest of the totem pole.
Yeah, but yeah, I just wondered if anyone else had that problem with trying to. I know it's a silly problem, but trying to play games with other people they don't know, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people have that problem. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have that problem that don't even have avoidant personality disorder because it's just a very judgmental place to be.
Right.
Yeah, especially when it's something like video games where it's based on skill, so someone can always challenge your skill and go, "Oh, you suck," or something like that. Just
Yeah, but that's like that's what the gaming community is, unfortunately.
Yeah,
it's
is.
not super supportive.
Yeah.
I am like super psyched to get into our stories.
Okay.
I don't know if you feel like it's a good time to put it in or not, but
no, definitely we can go ahead.
we just put out feelers just tonight, and we've gotten like this pouring in of information from people that I'm really psyched to share. I'm gonna keep everybody anonymous, or at least just go by a first name so that I can preserve privacy for everybody.
And that's what these people agreed to. So we're not just making this decision on our own. This is
Right.
what the people. We're only referring to people and referring to their stories in the way they told us to refer to them and to refer to their stories.
Yes. So they're a lot of them are quite lengthy, and in a good way. They want to tell their stories, so I'm willing to share their whole stories so that nobody feels like an important part of their life has been cut out.
Right.
So keep in mind that might be a little bit longer than you might be used to for a typical story, but I feel like it'll all be worth it in the end, because everybody can understand that we all have unfortunately very similar backgrounds in terms of traumas, and
Someone can relate.
Yeah.
The whole reason that we're doing this is because everyone's story is different, but there are also a lot of similarities we have in these communities, and especially with all of us having mental health disorders. So it's just about everyone's story could possibly touch one other person. You're helping one other person,
yes,
and that person might not get that from anywhere else. So we want to, give everyone
Help
a
be
chance.
that person.
Yeah, we want to help be that bridge between people.
Yeah. All right. So, this comes from a listener who wanted to share their story. I will insert a trigger warning here because there are thoughts of suicide and sexual assault in this story. But if you're okay with that and you're ready to listen to someone's life, then please listen on. So, this person says, I first attempted suicide at almost 8 years old by hanging from my bunk bed.
Wow.
I received no help from this. Fast forward.
Hold on a minute.
I know, it's a lot to take in.
Yeah. 8 years old.
8 years old. So I'm not sure what the precursor is to that, but I feel for that. Not that I have felt that way when I was that young, but that's a lot.
Yeah, sorry, that was just shocking. Go ahead. I'm not going to interrupt
Yeah.
you through this whole thing, obviously. Yeah.
So fast forward a few years later, and the depression cycle got so bad during around the sophomore year of high school, freshman year of undergrad, and then toward the end of my master's program. These were what I thought were the lowest of the lows. With the one a couple of years ago, I knew I needed help. I checked into a local university hospital psychology center and told them that I have daily ideation and knew that I'd act on it. A week later, I was released with no follow-up outpatient treatment and a prescription for medication. I told them that I was still actively suicidal and they still sent me on my way. The following week was a blur of bad choices, such as trying heroin, even though I had never even smoked a cigarette, let alone tried drugs. I wanted desperately to die, but I didn't want my then 6-year-old to know that her mother committed suicide. I went to a friend's house and I drank a lot. At that point, I was violently sexually assaulted that night. It was my breaking point. I started a downward spiral, and 4 months later, I jumped off of a bridge in my city. I woke up 2.5 days later and was seriously hurt. Was transferred back to the psych department that let me go a couple months earlier. That had just let me go a couple months earlier. At this point, I found out that I was pregnant. I couldn't be an effective parent to my daughter that I already had and loved so much. I couldn't even take care of myself, and my insurance wouldn't cover an abortion. They claimed that I didn't file a police report, so I couldn't prove that it was rape. Even though the fetus obviously had very different DNA from my husband, I had had no sex in a year, plus due to my worsening depression. I called Planned Parenthood, but couldn't afford the abortion, so now I'm seriously depressed. I have just had a serious suicide attempt and was not currently a good wife or mother to my current family and was forced to have another child. Now, I don't want this to be a debate about abortion, but that's my story. Am I glad that my little one was born? Absolutely, 100%. Do I think that I should have been put in this situation? Not at all.
No, not at all.
I still struggle with depression. I have almost daily ideation for 3 years now, and recently, about 7 months ago, I went back to the ER because I knew that I'd kill myself. They didn't have enough beds and sent me home with it, just sent me home until it got worse. This time around, I don't hide my depression. I've lost some friends but gained 2 amazing ones because I'm so honest about where I am with my mental health.
That's
Yeah, we're proud to hear that.
Yeah. Friends are so big in this stuff, man.
Yeah, I don't know where I'd be without mine, so I get that. So they continue, when I'm worried, I reach out. I still don't have a therapist, and my insurance stopped covering the one medication that did help me, but I'm doing okay for the first time in decades. I can't say that I can get the constant ideation to stop, but a friend who is a therapist thinks it's more of an OCD or anxiety thing at this point. Rather than ignoring the dark, depressed elephant in the room, I embrace it and talk with others and can go about with my life most days. So, just in case anyone's wondering, my daughter doesn't know that my husband isn't her dad. I don't know when, if, or how I'll tell her that, but we never know. I know we've all been through this.
So wait. So, the child she had from the sexual assault doesn't know that her husband is not
Right.
her father.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really tough. You're extremely strong for, enduring all this.
You're a very strong person. I'm sorry that I'm reacting in like real time. I didn't get a chance to read all the stories because everything was just so fresh right before we put the feelers out tonight and we got all these stories back. You're a very, very strong person, and thank you so much for sharing because I know that's tough. I know that must be really tough to share. As you said, you're telling us something that someone in your family doesn't even know, obviously.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that.
I mean, it also sounds like she has a good support system. She said when she needed when her child needed a blood transfusion at birth, the husband stepped right up to donate, thinking he'd be an obvious match,
Right.
forgetting that he biologically wasn't.
Oh,
And there's been a few moments like that over the past couple of years. So, I mean, it's great that, I mean, things started out badly, but I think that they're
right.
starting to go in the right direction.
And good that you have friends that you can depend on like that, and that you have a good support system. A lot of us don't have great support systems,
Yeah.
and we don't get through these things because we don't have those great support systems.
Yeah.
Sorry, there was something I want to touch on at the end of that. About the daily ideation, which is,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, because I don't, that word is like thinking about suicide, correct?
That's how I understand it.
Okay, so if you feel that way, please please reach out to someone because, like I said, we're not therapists, we're not professionals. I don't want anyone to I don't want anyone to let that linger. It's not okay. It's not okay to think about. And it's not okay to not talk about.
Right.
You need to talk to someone.
You
about
shouldn't
that.
feel like you're a burden on anyone for feeling that way.
But if you, I just all right. I just have personal experience with people committing suicide, and what I want to say is that a lot of people keep it to themselves because they don't want to be a burden to someone. Most people would rather you tell them, or rather reach out. So please reach out to somebody if you ever feel like that. Please.
And I mean, it sounds like, you have a good husband and family, and I think that they'll be receptive to you reaching out if you ever need anything, as well as us.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, if anyone needs to reach out to me, I'm available at all times too. I mean, I may not be someone but if you don't have anyone, we're also here because it's been plenty of times I needed someone and the person who was there for me was a complete stranger. So, yeah. And thank you again for sharing your story. What was that? Did that person give you their name or?
No, this is an anonymous one.
Okay.
I mean, I did say she, but it's still anonymous.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing your story. I hope you get to listen to the podcast, and I hope you did a good job of representing your story. We wanted to get it out as you wrote it. We didn't want to change anything or shorten it up or, we didn't want to take away from any parts of your life. And I really appreciate you opening up and sharing, and I hope that you opening up and sharing so much and so deeply allows someone else to be able to get the courage to come out and share as well.
All right, I have a couple more stories. So this comes from Henry. He was okay with us sharing his information, but he's a coach for young men aged 16 to 23. He helps them discover their strengths and fortitude so that they can face adversity with an assured sense of self. I think this is awesome, everything that he's setting out to do. And he works a lot with depression and identity, especially for young men who have the highest suicide rate in the UK, which I didn't know that. I'm not sure what the stats are for the United States, but
So in the
that's
UK, it's the men between what age?
well, he just said that he helps young men from 16 to 23, but that young men in general have the highest suicide rate. But I don't know
I'm
what
guessing between
age
that
group.
age group.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So this person was diagnosed with bipolar affective disorder, OCD, ADHD, depersonalization disorder. I'm not familiar with that. Dermatillomania, dyspraxia, and borderline personality disorder. I'm sorry if I butchered any of that. I'm actually not familiar with this at all. But he did say that these things were triggered or started when he was 15.
Okay.
in the past, he searched for reasons, or yeah, reasons why he didn't feel like he was himself with these diagnoses until he realized that he was not his disorders. He said time and experience has shown him that they don't define him, they empower him. They are not his experience in life, but he's a strong believer that mental illness is actually a gift. So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Like, are there any highlights to having your disorder?
To having mental, I think I think some of it is. I mean, like I said, having AvPD and always feeling like people are judging me, I'm always saying the worst. So most things people say to me don't get to me. So I feel like that's kind of like one of my superpowers. I feel like also because of the PTSD, I can take on most things. Like I know it's not a good thing to say, but I haven't cried in. I actually did cry recently about something, but I don't cry that often, and like I said, I dealt with 20 deaths in the past 5 years.
It's a lot.
It's like 5 deaths a year or something.
Yeah.
I'm not doing the math right now.
But that wasn't correct.
That
but
was for a year.
Yeah.
For a year. But yeah. So, I mean, I don't know about a gift, but there are sometimes like side effects that are caused by the same thing that caused your disorder.
Right.
So, yeah, I know that if that doesn't make any sense, then it doesn't make any sense. But I can kind of see where he's going with that.
He said, it's funny how depression is an absence of emotion, yet it is the power to create, or maybe it has the power to create a vast shared wealth of it. He tells his clients that ADHD doesn't mean that you can't concentrate. It means you get to choose what to concentrate on, and so on. So you can see how you can kind of flip each disorder and find the silver lining in each thing.
Yeah.
His diagnosis led him to feel like he was broken, and it fueled his descent into an addiction. Lost his family, he almost lost his life, and became homeless and filled with self-loathing. The odds were stacked. So what saved him? It was someone seeing in the light that he had, it was someone seeing the light in him that he had been so desperately trying to hide.
Right. A good thing.
So with someone's belief, or with the belief of someone else, he was able to kind of light the fire under himself and start working toward self-improvement.
So it took someone else to light the fire under him.
Yeah.
Not him.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I know for me, like sometimes it's not me that I care about so much, but someone else I care about saying something to me really lights me up. I don't know why.
I mean, I feel like having a mental illness with a good support system can allow you to feel more validated in everything and be more empowered. And I don't know if you'd get that same empowerment without that dependency, I guess.
I feel like what I'm trying to, I don't know, I understand what you're trying to say, but I think we're trying to say something a little different. I think what I'm trying to say is like almost with my disorder, love from someone else almost feels better than love for myself.
Yeah. No, I see that.
Like when someone else is like, hey, you got this and you're strong, it's way better than when I tell myself that. And it just, I don't know why it lights me up differently than when I do it myself.
Yeah. He said that mental illness has given him the opportunity to look deep within himself, and since then he's built resilience, self-respect, self-love, and compelled to help others make the same journey, which is exactly the same idea of this whole podcast.
Right.
We'd like to build a community where everyone can help each other grow.
Right.
So, thanks, Henry. That was super insightful. That was really helpful, and we appreciate your feedback.
Yeah, thanks. I wanna write him. Did we write him back?
Yeah, I'll give you some information.
Okay, yeah, I wanna write him myself because I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much. Next, we have a story from Sarah. She lives in the United States, and she lives with her husband. She's been struggling with mixed anxiety depressive disorder, which manifests itself, but not just with mental health issues. There's also some panic attacks and some intestinal issues as a result of it. So this is what she says. I've seen a gastroenterologist several times in the past, but they can't seem to find anything it could possibly be related to. I didn't start seeing a therapist until my mid-20s. We're very certain that my mental health issues are a result of actual brain chemistry changes that occurred during my childhood development, during which I was sexually abused by a close family member. I've always struggled with thoughts of suicide, coupled with crippling anxiety. I remember I'd laid awake in my bed at night as a child and be terrified for hours that we were going to get something like bombed. This was following 2001, when we were getting into conflict with the Middle East. Or that my dad would just die in the middle of the night. Totally random stuff that no one worries about without reason.
Like generalized anxiety stuff.
Exactly. As I got older, I got into theater, which gave me an outlet to express myself. The sexual abuse stopped when I was about 12, and the family member in question got married, so life seemed okay at the time. When I was around 15, I got my first boyfriend. He was an awesome guy, but anytime a guy touched me, I would freak out. I couldn't stand it. Finally, I gave in when I was 16, and I told him about what had happened. He kept my secret. We broke up a little while later due to unrelated issues, but he remained a really close friend even to this day. When I was 18, I started sneaking into the local bar with some friends, met the wrong sort of people, and discovered that drinking really numbed the horrific pain that my soul was in. And it was then, for a while, when I was about 22, that I'd go out every weekend and generally try to destroy my life. Panic attacks happened at least twice a week. I was in literal hell, debating constantly on whether to just kill myself. I laid in bed one night just sobbing. I couldn't stand it anymore. I was so scared. I had a huge bottle of whiskey in my bedroom, and I had pain pills left over from a surgery I recently had. And I thought, well, if I just take all the pain pills, drink a ton of whiskey, and lay down, I'll go to sleep, and I just won't wake up again. This was at about 2 a.m. I heard my mom downstairs in the kitchen, which was insane because she usually goes to bed around 8:30 p.m. I told myself I would just go talk to my mom one last time. Like a little kid, I just wanted my mom. So when I went downstairs and she was in the kitchen sneaking ice cream, which is literally how my mom is, she saw me and she just knew that something was wrong. I just broke down and told her everything: the abuse, the drinking, the panic attacks, wanting to end my life. The next day, she took me to her church, which did employ 2 actual counselors for people facing non-spiritual crises. It was then that I met Mrs. B. This woman saved my life. We met 3 times a week, every week, for 2.5 years. We would go and get coffee, we would go for walks. She took me to dinner with her a lot, and it was just so therapeutic. She's a Christian, but she didn't push God on me, which was very nice. Because of what I had gone through, I had a hard time believing that God existed. She taught me methods of calming my anxiety. One particular one I use still to this day is grounding. She saved my life, and that woman, I'm 100% fully convinced, deserves the best spot in heaven. Aww. She put parts of her life aside to help a young girl that was terrified and in pain. Finally, I decided to go back to college. I dropped out a few years before. I decided on a university about 3 to 4 hours away. I wanted to be brave. And she encouraged me, even helped me do the paperwork when I was confused. I started school and got into the nursing program and started seeing the therapist there. They tried Lexapro, but it turned me into a zombie, so I just try non-pharmacological stress reduction methods. I meditate, I do grounding techniques, I work out, and when all else fails, I just take a really hot bath, close my eyes, and take cleansing breaths. It was while I was in university that I met my husband. He was very understanding about my anxiety from the start, and what they say is true: when you know, you know. And I just knew. 2 years after our first date, we got married. And yeah, we fight. I still have periodic panic attacks and days when the depression is so bad that I don't want to get out of bed. But he helps me without letting me lean too much on him, which is the healthiest way to be in a relationship with mental health issues. I'd agree.
Yeah, we just talked about
you
that.
gotta do friendly pushes toward the right direction.
You gotta support each other, but not enable each other. You gotta also help each other break out of these things.
Yeah, exactly. She says, we relocated for his job after I graduated. I have a job I adore now. I get to help people, and I feel a sense of purpose as a nurse. That's the same thing with me being a veterinary nurse. because animals are great because a lot of people suck, and I get to help heal things
Right.
and make them feel better, which in turn makes me feel better. Sorry. So she said, it chases away a lot of the bad thoughts. We recently decided that instead of trying to have a baby naturally, we're going to adopt. My family has a long history of mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and some other personality disorders that we don't want to potentially pass on to a child. This isn't an easy life. It isn't always sunshine and rainbows, but I'm happy. I'm coping. I'm looking forward to the future with hope and have, for the first time in my life, done that, and I'm grateful for that. Wow. Thank you, Sarah. That was great.
Wow. Yeah, that. A lot of these people are very strong.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot to unpack there, but that was really, really brave of her to share that.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say about it is, I think she's really, really brave for talking about the abuse.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people can't, talk about that.
Yeah. It's very difficult to do so. I mean, I'm just speaking from experience. It's hard. I mean, for me at least, my brain is very foggy around the situation, and I have to push myself to remember things or to even get the words out from my brain when I'm talking about my abuse. So I really appreciate that, and I'm a complete stranger to you, and you opened up about that. So I appreciate that more than you'll know.
And I also like the that she's helping people because I like when people break that stereotype of hurt people, and I know that's a stigma and a stereotype, but people like you and people like me, we want to help people because we've been hurt.
Right. That's how
And
it should be.
like the other person said earlier, Henry, like he said, mental illness can make us so much more sensitive and sympathetic to the way others feel.
Right.
And it's crazy how, like he said, like depression is supposed to be something that keeps you like absent of emotion, but it makes you so much more in touch with yours and other people's emotion.
Right.
Because I can relate so much to these stories and feeling the way most of these people feel.
Yeah, it's nice to have that empathy and be able to feel the same ways that they feel. I mean, not exactly, but you truly understand what they've been going through.
Yeah. And also, Sarah, feel free to reach back out to us if you ever want to reach back out to us. Not for nothing. If you need whatever or just want to talk to someone, we're here and to open up to. I mean, not even for the show. Just if you ever need someone to talk to, feel free to vent. We feel like you really opened up to us, and you're part of the family now.
Yeah, so thanks, Sarah.
And
Thanks,
thanks
everyone.
all
Yeah.
of you, first of all. And we have one more story, right?
Yeah. This one comes from Jem. Did you want to read this one?
Yeah, I'll read this one.
Okay.
All right, so Jem, as I said, allowed us to use her full name. Oh, not her full name, her first name. And she starts off by saying, I don't know what you're looking for or if this will help as it's from the UK. I just wanted to repeat that because it definitely still helps. I mean,
Yeah.
mental health is universal.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I have found once diagnosed, you are no longer a real person. It took me years to get someone to listen to me when I said I wasn't okay. Then when I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, it suddenly became me that was unable to be in charge of my treatment. It was just medication upon medication. And yes, it helped while I needed it, but I hated it as everything was numb and blurry. I can totally relate to that because a lot of this medication just makes me foggy and makes me not feel like myself.
Side effects are no joke.
Yeah, not at all. I eventually found someone who would work with me and listened. We came up with a plan and I got to come off my meds with supervision. But I was really lucky and went through at least 10 doctors before I found someone willing to help properly. Oh my God, can I freaking relate to that? And I'm still having problems with doctors and stuff now.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that's me with therapy. I can't find the right person.
I need to get into therapy too because that's a big step I need to take. And I just want to commend all of you guys who went through therapy because that's a big step to get to. I know, definitely. All right, so as she said, I went to 10 doctors before I found someone willing to help properly. Also, now, one of the previous docs who diagnosed me explained what it meant to have BPD. I eventually looked it up myself. It was 13 years ago since I was diagnosed, and the stigma still stands. So I normally don't tell people. I would, okay, and that's what she said. She would rather just us use her 1st name. But yeah, thank you one for sharing again, and
It's very brave.
yeah, and this is her. I know dealing with BPD. I had a friend who dealt with BPD. I know it's hard already, and it's harder when you do try to get help, and you can't get help. And it's kind of similar in the U.S. I mean, it's very hard to get help for these mental disorders and these conditions. I don't know why, or sometimes like for me, I was diagnosed with like four other things before I got diagnosed correctly. And now that I'm diagnosed correctly, I still can't get the proper medicine or insurance to take care of that medicine or a support system set up that I can't get anything I need set up for it. So it's definitely the same over here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Some people have it easy to get this stuff done, and some people it takes forever to get it done.
Yeah, I'm actually curious. If you're listening from another country other than the United States, I'm very curious to hear what mental health is, how it's handled in your area, and if you feel like it's adequate and what they can do to help you.
Yeah, see this like also now one of the previous docs who diagnosed me explained what it meant to have BPD.
Yeah.
How do you go to that many doctors and no one explains?
What's wrong with yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I said, it took me forever to understand what AvPD was.
Yeah.
Like I was diagnosed with it at like 9, 10, and I didn't understand what it was until I was like 19, 20. But thank you for sharing. I'm sure there's a lot of people who can relate to this. I definitely can relate to this because it's just been a medical rodeo my whole life dealing with regular sicknesses on top of dealing with these mental disorders.
Yeah, you've been through a lot.
Yeah, I've been through every doctor and every type of medicine from Lexapro to Prozac to Xanax to Ambien, Trazodone, Tramadol for pain, just a bunch of different SSRIs.
I know it's a list.
Yeah, it's a list. Thank you very much for sharing. And like I said, some people medication works for, and some people it doesn't work for. So I'm glad that you found the balance that you needed to find between taking medication and also doing other things like working on yourself. I'm glad you came up with a plan. I'm glad you have, what seems like a good support system and a good therapist now. And yeah, feel free to reach back out. I hope you get to hear the podcast, and I hope, like I said, we did a good job representing your story. We just wanted to make sure that it was read as you written it.
Yeah, and if any of you ever feel like we've misrepresented you or said something incorrectly, please correct us. We're happy to amend that on the next podcast. So we just appreciate you reaching out.
And also, the main reason of us getting all these stories out is because we want you guys listening to the podcast to tell us how you can relate to these stories. And we want to do something a little different and give people something to talk about.
Right.
And I feel like if you can't open up about what's going on with you, maybe you can at least give your opinion on what these guys are opening up about, or at least commend these guys for opening up, because I commend all of you for opening up. It's very hard, I know, because I get on this podcast now every other day now.
Yeah.
And to try to express my feelings, and I know it's very hard to express your feelings, especially knowing that these feelings are going towards strangers.
Right.
And yeah, I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the interaction, because we've been trying to get people to interact with us, and
finally happened.
yeah, it's really hard to draw out people in a community of mental health, because everyone has their own insecurities and their no one wants to be hurt, and the internet's a pretty tough place.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about kind of ramping down here a positive thing that happened this week.
Okay.
I mean, I think I probably highlighted it.
Our one positive thing segment. One positive thing.
Yeah. I think I already highlighted something from the last podcast, but I'll think of something new. Can you think of anything off the top of your head?
One positive thing for this week. Well, I can say that I cried.
Hmm.
I cried for the first time in about a year, maybe more.
You think that helped?
Yeah, I try not to a lot, but I came to terms with something I was blaming myself for,
Mm.
which was, my close friend passing away, my
Right.
best friend Kayla. I still blame myself for that. Um, I came to terms with something about that. Listening to music, of all things, you know how
Mm-hmm.
music is a big part of my life, and
Right.
one of those songs helped me get through it. Specifically, it was the "I'm Sorry" song by Joyner Lucas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that
You
song.
guys should listen to that.
Trigger warning for that song if you're gonna listen to it. "I'm Sorry" by Joyner Lucas. It's a trigger warning. It's a song about suicide. Don't want you guys going there blind and being blindsided. But
He represents the struggle very well.
he represents it in a very realistic way.
Yeah.
But that helped me work through something this week, and it's something I didn't think I would be able to work through. It's very, it was a big weight off my shoulders, and
Right.
that's one positive thing I did this week. I would like to add actually another one.
Mm-hmm.
I did this last week too.
I was
I
about
know
to
it's
say, it
one
should just be
positive
two
thing,
positive things.
but I always have two positive things. I don't know why.
That's good. It's a good
So
problem.
this week I also told my friends about the podcast, which was a very
Oh,
hard thing
I didn't.
for me to
I
do.
didn't realize that.
Yeah, because it's hard separating my. It's hard to talk to the people closest to you about this
It
stuff.
is. It's weird. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and for me, my friends, my friends are struggling to understand it, but they're slowly starting to get it. So they don't. A lot of they have their own mental issues, and probably or they don't. Basically, my friends don't talk about this stuff. As most
Typical
people,
guys.
yeah,
I guess you'd say.
most people don't talk about this stuff. So
Yeah.
they listen to me when I talk about it, but I didn't want to have to put them in the awkward spot to listen to the
Mm-hmm.
podcast. If they listen to the podcast, I want them to do it because they wanted to, not
Mm-hmm.
because they're just doing it for me. So I told them about the podcast, and that was a positive step for me too.
I mean, going off of that, I told my dad about the podcast.
Oh, there we go.
And he's been a big supporter of us as a couple,
Right.
in terms of our growth, because we both have struggles.
Right.
And he was pretty proud. He was hoping he could be a guest speaker one
Oh,
day.
okay, yeah, definitely, definitely.
So that would be interesting. So yeah, I don't think I have much else positive that happened this week. I mean, I
Didn't
worked.
someone else want us to possibly be a speaker on their podcast?
Oh yeah. I believe it was Henry actually.
Okay, 'cause
That-
I would love to do that.
Yeah, I
would
think that'd be really interesting.
I would love to mesh with someone. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be great. So we'll be in contact and we'll figure out some sort of way to make that happen. But I think that would be awesome.
All right, and we're still we're also talking about taking a step. You could still be taking the one step. It's still not a week yet because the 2 episodes we released this time are close together. But normally we want you to try to take that step a week in advance. Our steps this week we're still working on. Mine is
Yeah.
talking to my mother.
And talking to my parents about how I feel about life.
Yeah, so we're still going to get to those steps this week, and we hope you guys can also take a step this week. No matter how major or minor that is. I recently saw someone getting ready to perform a live gig, one of their first live gigs, and they have AvPD, I believe.
Oh wow.
And
That's
I
amazing.
was really proud. I don't know them, but I'm really proud of them because that's a huge
That's
step.
great.
Yeah, that's a huge step.
Aw.
Yeah.
I wish you luck, whoever you are.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah. Anything else small you want to throw in there? I had a question about our relationship today. I had just asking how did we meet and things like that. And if anyone wants to know, we did meet on the internet. And just so happened we had a mutual friend. Actually, one of my
Oh
ex-girlfriends.
God. Are we getting into this?
Yes, one of my ex-girlfriends was a mutual friend of ours. She was a good friend though, so I mean, it wasn't like any.
She was alright.
It wasn't like any competition or anything. She told me that Christina was a good girl and a nice young lady.
She was
so,
alright.
Yeah, but we did meet on the internet, and basically after that, the rest of it was pretty normal. We became friends first, and then we slowly worked on building a relationship, and we've been together ever since.
Actually, to interrupt, technically, you didn't want to date me. It was your friend Willie, who we've already talked about.
As we know, with I have AvPD, so it's hard to believe anyone really likes me. So I just kept thinking, oh man, this girl's so wonderful, and I wish I could find a girl like her. And my friend was just like, do you think she likes you? I was like, no, why wouldn't she tell me if she likes me? But apparently I was not picking up on signals.
No, he wasn't.
I don't pick up on signals well because, like I said, it's hard to believe someone likes you. So I was just taking everything you said as nice compliments, But yeah, so we've been together since 2012.
Yeah.
7 years.
Don't ask that with a question at the end.
2012. We've been together since 2012, so 7 years, and it's been great. We just got engaged this year. But yeah, I had someone ask about what is our relationship the main reason they asked because they said we're very open, obviously helpful and supportive of each other, and they were wondering if it's a relationship, because if it is a relationship, then it's a good relationship. And
I'd like to say it is. I feel like we just have like a natural mesh though.
Yeah, I feel like we have a natural rapport. I feel like we've always, since the beginning of our relationship, you've been able to tell me about, you told me about your abuse very early in the relationship, and I told you about mine and my situations very early in the relationship.
Yeah.
So we've just been easy to open up to from the beginning, and a strong advocate for opening up to your partners and partnering up and dealing with that. For me personally, she's my strongest advocate and my biggest supporter, and
thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the same for me.
Yeah, but I think that's it for this week. We had fun opening up for you guys, and we appreciate you, the rest of you guys, opening up for us.
Yes, definitely.
And yeah, this has been the Avoidance Podcast. I'm Sean.
I'm Christina, and please hit us up on all of our social medias because we love this interaction. This episode was fantastic.
And always avoid that avoidance.
All right, see you guys next time.